from Lake Betz on this overcast day with mergansers and geese and kingfisher and red-shouldered hawk behind me. So far so good this morning. We're going to continue my big year 2025. Let's go. What's up everybody? Phil with Photo Gear Fun here today, back at my home, Lake Betz. I've got this Nikon P950, I talked about it in a couple other videos. I'm gonna shoot all the shots here today, so all the bird shots and all the bird video that you see today will come from this P950. I've got my A7CR along with me, which is what I normally shoot. I'm gonna take some shots just for reference. This P950 supposedly has a 2000 millimeter reach, and I've got 840 on this A7CR. So we're going to do some comparison photos, but all the photos you see, unless I tell you it's from the A7CR, you see the comparisons are going to come from this Nikon P950. Like I said, I already see the kingfisher out there. There's some hooded mergansers, some Canada geese. There's a red-shouldered hawk over there, and I've just got into the first area. So looks like it's going to be a promising day, even though the weather isn't great. Let's see what happens, and we'll check in a little bit. Well, that was pretty cool. The focus is struggling on this P950, but compared to the Sony A7CR, a lot of them do. But I had to go to what they call manual focus spot. It's really not manual, it's auto, but you choose a spot. I chose the small spot. That seemed to give me the best results so far, but I'm going to try a few more modes. I'm not sure if that video came out or not, but hopefully we'll get some decent video too. That hawk flew away. I'm on the lookout for some northern shovelers that were here at least yesterday. Looks like the sun's gonna come out for us. A bunch of sparrows around us. So yeah, I'm gonna walk around a little bit more. Hopefully that sun does pop out. We'll see what else Lake Betz has for us today. So far, the word of the day is frustrated. So I've got some more shots. So there's some northern shovelers, some godwalls, some mallards out here, and the focus is slow. It's a contrast-based focus. I knew it would be slower than, again, comparing it to my Sony A7CR is not fair at all. You will get shots, and we'll look at some of the shots. So what I'll do after we get done in the field here is I'll go into Lightroom and we'll look at some of the shots we got and some of the shots we didn't get. Look at the noise levels, look at all those types of things. I am shooting RAW, so those photos will be edited by myself. I'm not shooting JPEG, I didn't want the camera to do it, so we'll look at those RAW files and edit them. But we're going to continue on here at Lake Betz. That sun is struggling to peek through, but it looks like it might peek through. Might get some good light here. Otherwise, it was fairly low light, so I get a good test for low light capabilities of this Nikon P950. You'll see again shots compared to the A7CR for the reach. That reach is definitely impressive. 2000 millimeters is quite a bit, and it seems like it's legit, but we'll compare again. And I'll show you one thing. That's a 16 megapixel sensor. You don't have a lot of room to crop, and when we get into Lightroom, I'll show you the room we have to crop on this A7CR, which is a 61 megapixel camera. It's one of the main reasons why I use it, that and the autofocus. But yeah, we're going to continue on here at Lake Betz. This is part of my big year, although I don't know if we're going to see anything different, but it's more about this Nikon P950, so I might title this something different from big year. But at any rate, I am continuing the big year. I'm using the P950, and hopefully we do see some birds that will add to the list. We'll check in when something happens. Well, this couldn't be luckier. You'll never see it probably, but in that pine tree, one of the big pine trees, is a bald eagle. So it just flew in as I'm doing this comparison. So I got some shots with the A7CR, and I got some shots with the P950. Again, zoom range is pretty impressive. Since the eagle is pretty much static, it's good, pretty easy to get shots. If it were moving, that would be, I think, a different story. But yeah, so I heard the pileated woodpecker. I'm hoping that the pileated woodpecker comes around, but I'm going to take some more shots. Excuse me, some more shots and video of this eagle, and we'll check in when something else happens. Wow, that was awesome. That pileated woodpecker showed up and was there for quite a while. My friend Samir and I were taking some shots of him. The eagle's still there. Samir's over taking some shots of the bald eagle. But yeah, that pileated woodpecker, got some video, got some photos, and there goes the kingfisher. No, that's a bufflehead. Anyway, bufflehead coming in for a landing. But I've got plenty of photos and videos to show you. So we're gonna go into the studio, we'll check out the photos, check out the videos. Yeah, that's gonna do it from Lake Betz. Just an amazing spot. If you're in the area, in the RTP Triangle area, definitely check out Lake Betz in Morrisville, North Carolina. Let's send it over to you, Studio Phil, and we've got some things to talk about. All right. Okay, let's look at some of these shots here. When I came into the parking lot, there's a mockingbird. So this is in Lightroom, and you can see all the information. This was shot at ISO 6400. just to give you an idea on what the noise level looks like. So it's a small sensor. It's about the same size as your cell phone sensors. So in low light, may not be the best. This is ISO 5000, and these haven't been edited. You can clean them up, and I'll show you how you can clean them up and what they look like. But those were in focus. This hawk shot, not so much in focus. You can see here that one seemed like it was pretty good focus. I tried a couple different modes, and you can see this Kingfisher here is completely out of focus. So as I mentioned in the field, I switched over to what they call manual spot. It's really not manual, it's still automatic focus, but you choose where you want the spot to be and the size of the spot. So I settled on the small spot and just put it pretty much in the center to try to get these shots, and you can see these are all out of focus. And then this is a hooded merganser at ISO 6400, and it's in focus. So again, you'll get some shots and you'll miss some shots. This one in focus, you can see there's two males and a female over there. Again, ISO 5000, so the light was not the greatest at that point. So this is the Kingfisher, and I really struggled with these shots. You can see most of them, I think maybe all of them, are out of focus, but you can see the range, and we'll talk about the range a little bit more here in a few minutes. But here's a shot of that red-shouldered hawk that was in focus and looks pretty good. And this is what it looks like cleaned up, and I ran some denoise software on this, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But you definitely can get in focus shots and shots that will clean up pretty well if you use some noise reduction software, either in Lightroom or some of the other third-party vendors you can buy software from. The red-shouldered hawk here. Again, this is before I realized that I should switch over to the focus mode. But you can see this female Kingfisher. This is ISO 2500. So the range is incredible. And you'll see here, this is at 321 millimeters, if you can see that. But 357 is the equivalent to 2000. A lot of these shots were taken at 2000 millimeters. So here's one. You can see this one was taken at 321 millimeters. And I did clean this up. So I used DxOMark version 4 to clean up these photos, and you can see that one looks pretty good. Here's what it looks like without, and this was only at ISO 1800. But again, the range is incredible. And again, we'll go through the range in a few minutes. I'll show you the comparison between my A7CR and this camera. But these ducks move fairly quickly, and again, you can get pretty good. My shutter speed was 1/640th. And I use that same shutter speed for both cameras just to make this a fair comparison. I would normally shoot at 1/1250th on my A7CR, but because this is a smaller sensor, I wanted to keep the noise lower, so I shot at 6/40th. But so if you're used to a specific camera, you might have to change your shooting style as far as shutter speed goes. But you can see, like I said, it was frustrating because I'm used to the good autofocus or the great autofocus of the Sony. And notice here the resolution. We'll talk about that in a second, but this is a 16 megapixel sensor, which isn't as important because it's got that zoom. But I'll show you what the 61 megapixel sensor, and again, it's not a fair comparison, but what that 61 megapixel sensor in the A7CR can do. This is a female bufflehead. Here's a blue jay. Again, these are good shots. I mean, technically they're good in focus. This one was shot at a low ISO 140, very little noise. And what I want to do here is show the dynamic range. So this is the photo as it was shot. So I made sure that I wanted to test dynamic range here just to see what it will do. So this bird is pretty much completely in shadows. I'll just, for the sake of time, hit it with a quick auto here and raise the exposure a little bit, but you can raise those shadows. So I found the dynamic range was pretty good. It's not, again, I'm comparing it to the A7CR, which is my main camera. It's not a fair comparison, but the dynamic range is actually pretty good. So you can see I can raise the shadows here quite a bit. I can lower those highlights and get a shot that, you know, basically went from this to this. So I would say the dynamic range is pretty impressive There's a bufflehead way out there. So this one was taken at 357 or 2000 millimeters equivalent. And these northern shovelers, I was at Lake Betz again today, and they're not there today, but just a funky looking duck, but beautiful. And this is shot at 285, so about 1500 equivalent millimeters. And again, I mean, this is at 327. The image quality is pretty good. These are all raw images, by the way, unedited. So again, normally I wouldn't use auto, but I'll hit it with a quick auto here just to give you an idea on what the finished product might look like. And I think it looks pretty good. I'm happy with the image quality for sure. It's just the autofocus seemed to be frustrating, especially in video. We'll scroll through here, and again, this was shot at the equivalent of 2000 millimeters, and it's a nice shot. Another nice shot here. Again, that's a male northern shoveler. There was a pair there, a male and a female. Let's look at these gadwalls here. So again, this was shot at the equivalent of 2000 millimeters. And, you know, this one's out of focus, but that's a tough situation. I don't think most people are going to complain about the image quality. Here's the pair of shovelers swimming together. Just wanted to take some kind of long range shots again, not in the best light. And these are shots maybe I wouldn't normally take, but I just wanted to give you a bunch of different test shots here for comparison. And they were pretty far out there at this point. Again, this is the equivalent of 2000 millimeters. So but there's a bunch of white-throated sparrows, which is what this is here. And again, these are all raw images, so there's no edits made to this, no cropping. And so with that zoom, you really don't have to crop as much, or not as much as I would normally with my A7CR. And then this eagle was way out there, and I'll show you a comparison shot here, but this is ISO 2000. You can see the noise levels. It handles noise like your cell phone would handle noise. That's pretty much what you can expect. This is a brown thrasher that came pretty close here. And again, I'll just hit this with a quick auto so you can get an idea on what it would look like. And if you wanted to crop, so we're at 4000 or 4600 by 34. So normally for these videos, I'll crop in 16 by 9, and then I'll do 2160 on the longest side. So this would be somewhere around there is about where I would crop this for the video. And then of course I'd clean up the noise, but this one's not too bad at ISO 500. The noise level isn't terrible. But you can see that there wasn't a ton of cropping needed here because of that zoom, but you also can't crop a lot. So here's a cardinal in the reeds. And this wasn't even at full zoom, so this is at 285, maybe the equivalent of 1500. So there are a lot of times that you won't need to zoom all the way in to 2000 to get a good shot. And again, this is raw, so you could clean it up and it would look pretty good. Here's those hooded mergansers again. And so this is what I wanted to show you. This is a very close-up shot because of that zoom. So this kingfisher likes to perch on this particular spot. And at 2000 millimeters or equivalent, you can get really close. And this was cropped just a little bit. Let me show you the cropping here. So you can see if I reset the crop, basically, this is, not a very big crop. And when we get to the comparison, I'll show you how I crop the A7CR sometimes. But this is shots of the pileated woodpecker. And when there's motion, like there was with this pileated woodpecker, so again, I was at 1/640th, so you have to balance that out. My shutter speed normally would be higher if I'm shooting with full frame because I can get away with it. But here we're at ISO 900. I probably could have gone a little higher on the shutter speed. And you can see, again, that's a shot that has a lot of motion blur in it, but some of these shots are good shots. But I think you'll get fewer good shots. And again, the price difference, the A7CR is expensive,
And this is, I got this refurbished for $700. You can see some motion blur in that shot. We're at ISO 1000 there, not even fully zoomed. But what I wanted to do is show you the comparison between this and my A7CR. So if we look here, this is the, and it's out of focus. I showed you the shot already, right? So this is basically what the Nikon can do. And normally I would go in here and forgetting that it's out of focus, and just to show you again how it would crop. For the videos, I'll crop at 16:9 and just bring it in until it looks reasonable, but making sure that we don't go below 2160. So, you know, somewhere in there. And then this is the A7CR. So this is the same shot, same spot basically. And you can see, first of all, this one's in focus, so it's really not fair, but I just wanted to show you as far as cropping goes. So I'll crop this one at 16:9. And you can see already, if I take it to 2160, so right about somewhere in there. So this is the same shot. This is with the A7CR cropped, and this is with the Nikon. So you can see that 2000 millimeters still gives you a more apparent or larger apparent size of the subject than the A7CR would at its cropped length. But you can see that the A7CR gives you much more latitude for cropping. So we'll look at this here. This is the same basic shot again. So this is the A7CR here. And then that's the Nikon. So really you just crop this shot maybe a little bit. And with the A7CR, a lot of times if I'm posting on social media, I'll crop 1:1. So I bring this down 1:1, you know, and I try not to go lower than 2048 on the pixels, and you can see the pixels over here. So this is at 3300 pixels square. And it gives you a very similar field of view to the 2000 millimeters zoomed in. So that extra length, the 2000 millimeters, does help. And I kind of really like this shot. But here's another comparison. So this is the Eagle that we saw that day. And this is the A7CR here. And you can see the resolution. So it's a 61 megapixel camera. If you do the math, that adds up to 61 million. And here is the Nikon uncropped. So these are both uncropped. So if I were to crop this, let's say 1:1 for social media, I would generally try to make the subject as large in the frame as I can, but not going below 2048. So somewhere in there. And then this is the A7CR. So I'll do the same and crop it to the same dimensions basically. And we'll see which one appears to be larger. But you can see there's so much room. That's why I love this A7CR. There's so much room to crop. So that's roughly the same. So this is the A7CR cropped in completely. And this is at 840 millimeters. You can see that here on a full frame camera, true 840 millimeters. And then this is the equivalent of 2000 millimeters. And I mean, which one looks better from an image quality perspective? With nothing done to them from the raw files, I would say the Sony looks much better, but everybody has a slightly different eye. But so you can see that there's definitely an advantage to having that 2000 millimeter lens, and that's a true 2000 millimeters optically. There is a digital zoom too, but I didn't use that digital zoom. But those are the comparison shots that I want to see. So this P950, definitely a camera that I'm going to keep with me. And when I know I'm going to be shooting subjects that are far off, I'll definitely be using it. And you can get some great shots, you can get some great video. But the autofocus is contrast based, which means it's not as technologically advanced as what Sony uses. And the Sony A7CR has the latest incarnation of the Sony autofocusing. So again, it's not a fair comparison, but these are the cameras that I use. And this is what I wanted to show you. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you like these types of videos, please consider subscribing. Get out there and have your photo gear fun. I will talk at you again in the next video. Thanks so much.